So this book is called the Anzac Memorial, and it was produced for Anzac Day 1916, the first anniversary. It was produced in about 6 different editions, and this was the cheap edition, rather a battered cover, worth 6 shillings, pretty bit battered. So some 20 years or so ago, I had it rebound most beautifully in vellum by Jack Harding, who had become a good friend, and he had been the chief restorer at the Mitchell Library. He did beautiful work, and this is a very good example of the fine work done by Jack Harding. The Anzac Memorial was edited by A.G. Stevens, who had been the editor of the Bulletin, and he conceived the whole Anzac Memorial very much as an ongoing publication to be issued each year by the Returned Soldiers Association, which then became the RSL over the course of time. There were to be 4 editions. You've just seen the cheap one, although a copy rebound most beautifully. This one was the top of the range. It was called the Royal Edition. The idea was to make 50 copies of it. Here is the page of limitation. There would be 50 copies. They would give copies to the King, the President of the French Republic, the President of the United States, the Tsar of Russia, the King of the Belgians, the King of Italy, and the King of Romania. That left 42 copies. This is one of the 42 copies. As you can see, every page throughout it is beautifully gold-edged. In addition to a complete roll of honour of the men from New South Wales who died, what you see here is a ribbon, which was a bookmark, rather battered, but a purple ribbon, because it was purple for royalty. And on page 144 is an original painting. Every copy had an original painting by Will Donald. And this you can tell from the feather in his hat is a light horseman. But he's an Anzac. By this time the word Anzac came to mean the place, the beach, and it also meant a man who served. It wasn't just the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. An Anzac was a man who served there. And this was a light horseman who'd served there. Strong, rugged, rather remote. Each copy of the Royal Edition was beautifully hand-bound, and if you look carefully you can see the word Anzac at the top, and it's decorated with motifs of eucalyptus gums and the date 1916. Every copy had an individual binding. The back was also individually stamped with gum nuts. No lettering, just the gum nuts as the motif on the back. And the condition of the leather is pretty much as it had been at the time the book was first issued. Now, whenever you produce an edition of a book of say 50 copies, you always need to have a few extra, just in case something goes wrong. You can see here that this copy does not have a number. Now that is called out of series. So the book, apart from that, is exactly like the other ones. Here's the title page. In front, I think I've missed the title page. The contents are identical inside, including on page 144. This time, the Anzac is an infantryman. If you take a look at the hat, it's got the slouch hat, but it's got no feathers. And this one has a bit more light on his face. He looks a slightly happy chap. But again, it's that rough, sturdy Anzac stereotype. But this did not become the stereotypical Anzac because the edition was so tiny. Outside, it's a different binding. So the very expensive leather binding wasn't done. This is a leather binding. It's a beautiful padded Morocco. You can just see there. It moves as you press it. Anzac Memorial. But this is probably about 5 copies were done this way. So in this collection, if there's a total of roughly 50, slightly less than 50 copies available in Australia, this collection has 2.